skeletons speak with such a screech. You'll shake and shudder in surprise when you hear these zombies shriek. Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine. Shrieking skulls will shock your soul and seal your doom tonight. Spooky, scary skeletons.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to bring you guys a special video today because I have a 3-day weekend and I figured why not. You guys have been amazing. I wanted to talk about my first time at a goth event, at a goth club. I know this is a question some of you have asked me on Twitter a lot, so I thought I would go ahead and give it an answer in video form. I have answered it on Twitter, but that answer is probably lost as it has been weeks and months since anyone has asked me this question, so I decided to make a video just to have it perpetually. So some background, I grew up for the majority of my preteen and teenage life. I am now 28. I grew up listening to what we know as emo music, general rock music, metal, everything, and being in the predominantly black area, I was made fun of and the different person, whatever, which is fine. I owned it. I dressed at Hot Topic. I wore my chains and my trip parachute pants, and I wore my band t-shirts. I went to Warped Tour. I lived that whole life. The music meant so much to me because I was so depressed and vulnerable emotionally, and I didn't really know myself, and I was figuring myself out, and I didn't even realize I had depression, and I was suicidal, and just all these things. So even though I listened to this music and I was a part of, I guess, this subculture, I don't know what to call it, I gravitated toward music that I wanted to listen to or I thought was good. So I found, I don't know how, I can't remember how, but I found an artist called Anders Manga when I was in middle school, and his voice was so different from anything I'd ever heard, and it was so moving, and his music was so moving that I didn't know what it was. It became my go to sleep music. Like, I would play his albums, like crying myself to sleep, literally. I'm not saying this to be some edgy person. I literally was very depressed and very sad, and every night was spent wishing I was dead because I have horrible eczema that covers my entire body, and when I was younger the flare-ups were constant, and I would scratch my skin until they bled, and trying to sleep when your skin is like basically attacking you and you're just wishing for the pain to go away is not the best way to grow up. So I wasn't a very happy person growing up. So his music really spoke to me, and it was nice and deep and moody, and I liked that, but it was different from the emo and pop punk music I had listened to and the metal music I had listened to. It was more mellow, and it seemed to fit like where I was in my life. But it's good to note that his music stands the test of time. Like, those old albums, I still listen to them to this day. The emo music and pop punk music and metal music, not so much. I'm not getting into that though. So this is about me and the goth subculture. So I found Hostiko, which is an industrial group. I fell in love with them, and Android Lust, I fell in love with her music, and I didn't know that this type of music had a name. I didn't realize that. I gravitated toward what I thought. I gravitated toward whatever I liked. I was listening to this music. Nobody else around me was listening to it. I had no reference for what it was. But it was funny because growing up in my black neighborhood and going to black schools, you would get called different and you would get called goth. And I didn't really care about labels, which is really stupid to say. I really didn't care about labels because, again, I was figuring myself out. So I didn't pay any mind to what other people were calling me, because all I knew was that I liked the way that I dressed, and I liked the attention that the way I dressed gave me. I liked that people were looking at me, because if they were looking at me from something I caused, then I had control over their eyes looking at me, if that makes sense. Besides them looking at me to pick on me, which is what happens my entire life, they then, when I started dressing the way I did and listening to the music I did and finding myself, they would look at me with fear. And I liked that because it meant they weren't going to mess with me anymore. And for someone who has had rocks thrown at her the entire way she's walking home from school, and for someone who has been bullied incessantly for all of elementary school, I found power in holding their gazes and being able to use that power. Being able to use the power of my appearance against these people was fantastic. I was in a world, I thought, that they weren't into. I wasn't always into what they were into, and I took that and used it to my advantage. I continued to write my books in between classes and in classes and get in trouble for it. I continued to listen to my music in class. I continued to dive into just what I wanted to get into, and I wasn't going to let anyone tell me that I couldn't, if that makes sense. I was also insufferable, I feel like. The music that I used to listen to, emo and that type of music, to me doesn't breed. It kind of fosters, like when you're a teenager, it kind of fosters this I'm too cool for everyone type of deal, which is kind of what I had a bit of going on. And I'm at peace with it, because, and I can talk about this because we all grow up and we all have to like learn and figure out who we are. And I'm glad I grew up, and I'm glad I grew into a whole person. And somewhere along the way in college and everything, I stopped defining myself by music, because the music I used to listen to, emo and screamo, the bands were still making music, some of them, but I just wasn't interested. It didn't sound the same. I guess because I learned emotional intelligence. I was able to handle my depression a bit better. I was able to handle my anxiety a bit better. And all the bullies of middle school and all the bullies of elementary school were gone. Like, dropped out or just whatever. I had graduated high school. I was moving on to college. I started listening to pop music. Like, whatever was on the radio when I was going to and from class and work, I would listen to it. I'm like, oh, pop music is not that bad. I got into Lady Gaga. Loved her. Her music is, even now, I love her music, because it still has a difference from regular pop music, to me anyway. So I grew up and I was like, you have to work and you have to do time management, and you can't sit in your room and brood all the time, which is what I did. I sat in my room for days on end, and I would just be lost in my thoughts, overthinking, just stuck in my head, not getting out into the world, not seeing the world, but having my own views without even challenging them. And it's no way to live. If you feel this way, if you're stuck in your head all the time, I promise you, it's not a way to live. You have to get out of your head. What helped me was bad breakups, unfortunately. From the breakups, I was able to realize my worth and realize that, like, I do deserve to be here. I do deserve to be alive, and I can go and do all the things that I want to do. So in college, I was listening to more pop music. I didn't really care as much about music, because when you have to make sure that you can juggle your class load and work and all these other things, like time for concerts and time for music, the music that you listened to so much when you were a kid, when you had all this free time, it kind of went out the window. For me, it did. I didn't really have the time, and nobody around me was like really into music like I was, so I was the only one that was like, and if no one's helping you foster your love for things, like you have friends you can bond over music with, you just start to lose interest. So a lot of other things came up for me. So music just became like, I stopped basing my entire world and my self-image on music. And I went to school. I went to college. Dropped out a few times, wrote these books a few times, but I kept going. Graduated last year, yay. Yeah, and in between that time, I met my now fiance, and I would just casually throw out the word goth, not even thinking about it, because that was what was in the popular culture. If you wear black and if you look a certain way, you're goth, which is not the case. So I would say this a lot, and he would get mad, and he would be like, "That's not goth." And at first I thought he was being elitist, and I'm like, "You're like what?" I was like, his attitude. I was like, "What's your deal?" And then he kept explaining to me. He was like, she's not goth just because she's wearing black. He's not goth just because I would look at people and be like, "Oh, she must be goth because she's wearing all black and she has platforms and she da da da." Because that was the mindset that I had growing up, because that's what people kept calling me. I never took on the label because I didn't think to, but I automatically saw anybody who dressed alternative or different as goth, when there is a whole actual thing that goth is. And I thought he was just being this annoying person, and I'm like, oh god, okay, I have one of these guys. But he kept, every time I'd bring up the word goth, he kept correcting me and saying, no, that's not goth. And I got so annoyed, I was like, okay, so what's goth? And he showed me a Susie and the Banshees song, Cities and Dust, which I will never ever ever forget. And I just watched the video, and I'm like, what is this? This isn't, because you think goth, or at least I did, you think goth and you think dramatic music, because if emo is so like emotional, which is what the word means, what the genre means, you would expect goth to be something like darker and heavy, but that's metal, you know? So you have to like, so it really, like, at first when he showed me Cities and Dust, I was just like, this is a cool 80s tune, but I don't think this is goth. I don't understand. I didn't understand. That was what it was. So he showed it to me, and I was just like, this is a nice song, but it wasn't the goth that I thought goth would be, so I dismissed it. And then he said, yeah, that's it. And then he said, we're gonna go down to where I'm from, and we're gonna go to goth night, and you're gonna see. And I had heard really, really vaguely of these things called goth night, and I was like, I never gave thought to it, because I never thought to check any out where I was. And he said, we're gonna go to one, and he's telling me that I'm not goth, and this goth is something different, for months. So I was freaked out by the time we were to go. And it was also like me meeting all of his friends, and they wanted to meet me so much, and I have anxiety, so a lot of that was just a lot for me. And also going to this event where I didn't know really anything about the goth music subculture, the goth genre of music. I didn't know anything actually about that, so I didn't know what to expect at all. Like, I had no idea what I was walking into. So before I passed the bar, and before I even got into where like the actual event was taking place, I started hyperventilating, because there were all these people around me. They're wearing all these amazing clothes that I can only dream of owning. Not all of them. Most of them were just in regular clothes. I have to stress that. Not everybody dresses to the nines when they're going to the goth club. Some people don't have the money. Some people don't have the time. You do not have to dress a certain way to be goth. Do not let anyone tell you that you have to wear Killstar or you have to wear certain things to be goth. You do not. So yeah, I met his friends. It was overwhelming. I loved it. I loved meeting his friends. I loved meeting people that knew him before he knew me. And I had a panic attack in the bathroom because for some reason something in me knew that if I walked in that room and I actually danced on that dance floor and I actually watched him dance and watched him have an amazing time, I would be changed forever. And I know it's dramatic as fuck. I know it's dramatic, but that's what I was going through. I was pacing in the bathroom, like hyperventilating, trying to breathe, trying not to cry, having a full-blown panic attack because what I had thought something wasn't that. And it's not that I was living a lie or I was calling, again, I never called myself goth before this. I didn't call myself anything because I was one of those people that kept saying, labels don't matter. I don't care. I don't need labels. Labels don't matter. Labels actually do matter. They do. So, but I didn't get any of this until I've made a decision, told myself to calm down and walk into that room. And I walked in and on, like, there are like big screens everywhere and there's music videos everywhere and they were playing oh my gosh, they were playing Sisters of Mercy, of course. Was it? They were playing Sisters of Mercy, This Corrosion. It looked like the beginning of Blade before the blood comes down. And my first thought was like, it looks like Blade. My second thought was, I've only seen this atmosphere. The dance floor is packed, people are dancing, there's lights everywhere, and This Corrosion is playing on like 4 different things, and I was like, my mind was blown, and I was like, what? And I was like, this is what I have been looking for my entire life. Like, this whole atmosphere, the feeling, the music, and I had heard that song before, but I didn't know that was considered goth music, even though I know Andrew Eldritch doesn't consider himself goth, blah, blah, blah. I was like, wow. But I was too scared to go dance until we were all talking to his friends, and Cities and Dust came on, and I was like, oh, I know this song. Second time ever hearing it, I start grooving to it a little bit, and then I'm just like, oh, I think I want to go dance to this, and I'm trying to pull him away from his friend to go dance to it, and we went to the dance floor, and we started dancing to it, and I was like, oh, this is what I've wanted, because let me give you some background. Growing up in a predominantly black area, or with a predominantly black family, you get exposed to black things. So for like my 19th birthday, I went to like a hip-hop club, hated it, because throughout my life I don't dance like the way black people are supposed to dance, quote unquote. And like growing up with a Caribbean family, if you can't wind your hips, you're gonna get ridiculed off the dance floor, and you can't do it. So there was always that like fear of being in black spaces and being made fun of, because you can't keep up. You can't keep up with the lingo. You can't keep up with the new cool thing. You can't keep up with the new dance. And it was very stifling for me in those spaces my whole life, even before I found the different clothes and everything that I'm into now. So being on that dance floor with Cities and Dust playing and all the different bands that came on after playing, and I just was dancing and dancing and dancing the night away, I was finally free in a way that I realized then that I had been trying to be my whole life. There was a freedom in the self-expression, in the dancing. No one can and even if people are looking at you, who cares? Because everybody else is doing their own dance. No one's looking at the other person and going, oh, she can't dance. Like, no one was doing that. I actually got compliments on my outfit and my dancing. People would come up to me, stop me in the middle, and be like, "Oh my God, your dancing is amazing." And I'm just like, "What? Oh my goodness, me? Thank you." Like, it was a whole new experience, and I wanted more. Like, I was like, I need more of this. There was a lot of music that played that night that I was like, this is goth music, because it was lighter than you would think goth music to be. It was danceable. A lot of goth music is actually really catchy and danceable, and I just wish once he took me there and I danced and I realized what it was. Like, it's a whole thing beyond just wearing black and being depressed, which has nothing to do with it. I was like, oh my God, I love this. I want to go again and again and again. And we did. And I've enjoyed it ever since. Like, I just have to say that this video is very hard for me to make also, because I don't want the backlash that I know is gonna come. But I have to say that if you tell someone that they're not goth because they aren't wearing the clothes that you think they should wear, you're not goth. Because goths don't give an F about that stuff. Like, you really shouldn't, because the way I felt on that dance floor, dancing to that music, nothing else mattered. And that was the happiest place, besides my fiance's arms, that was the happiest place I have ever been. And if I just want all these little kids, all these kids, because you're kids, and if you're not a kid, I'm sorry, I don't know. If you can, go to a goth event near you, look it up. There's probably a DJ pushing it on Facebook. Go to a goth event. Do not give two shits what anybody is wearing, because it does not matter, and dance. Please, just, if you like the music, if you already know you like the music, please go and just dance and lose yourself in that space, because there is nothing like dancing with a bunch of other sweaty people who are smiling and they just love the music as much as you do. Like, there is nothing like that. And don't tell people that they're not goth because XYZ. The only criteria to be goth is to listen to the music. Point blank, period. And I am not answering any questions about this video. If you want to tell me I'm wrong, do it on your own time. I'm not responding to any comments that are negative or that refute this. I don't care, because what I felt and what I see every time I go to goth night is acceptance, happiness, peace. Everyone loves each other. Not everybody is dressed to the nines, and the people that are look amazing, but you don't have to be. There are blonde-haired people, blue-haired people, people with a million piercings, people with no piercing. It doesn't matter. Like, there are people dressed like regular Joes who just left their office, rushed over to the club, and are just getting on the dance floor and start dancing because they live a corporate life and they don't want their family to know that they're out in this place because they have different interests. You can't hold people in a box like that and say, if you're not wearing this, you're not goth. I was wearing these clothes, which I just explained to you guys. I was wearing black and all these other stuffs and chokers and everything way before I even knew what the goth subgenre actually was. And I never once called myself goth. Ever. I never once called myself goth. I guess the closest thing I would consider myself emo back then, if I was gonna, but I didn't like labels at the time. But my fiance has shown me that labels are important, and there is a reason that you don't go to goth night to listen to Lady Gaga, because you're going to goth night to listen to goth music. This was my story time, I guess. This was my first night at the goth club, at goth night. I can probably do more story times if you guys want. I don't know, just let me know. If you want more stories, I'm gonna do an article on the goth subculture here where I live, most likely, or something like that, on Patreon. You can subscribe there, the link is in the bio. You can hit me up on Twitter if you ever want to talk. Hit me up in the comments if you ever want to talk. I'm always happy to talk to you guys. Thank you so this was so hard to like make, but thank you guys so much for watching. Drop some music in the comments if you want. I'm probably gonna do an Ender's manga centric video soon because he's really important to me as an artist, and you guys seem to like the What I Wear to Goth Club video, so I'm probably gonna do something like that, but it's going to be mostly the same clothes because I have no clothes. So I was broke for like a couple months, whatever. So yeah, so let me know. I'll make it. If you want me dancing to goth music, you can subscribe to my vampire tier on Patreon, where I post videos of me dancing to goth music if you want to see how I dance in the goth club, and also videos of me reading my books and videos of me sharing content before anybody else sees them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!